Good evening. Welcome to the regular monthly meeting of the Board of Commissioners held for the purpose of transacting the general business of the Township. Today's date is May 8, 2019. The meeting is being held in the Springfield Township building. Please stand and join the Board of Commissioners in a moment of silent reflection, honoring the servicemen and women who've placed themselves in harm's way in order to help preserve our safety. Please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this point, I would entertain a motion dispensing with the reading of the minutes of the previous meeting as written and recorded in the official minute book of the Township.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. Commissioner Cobb was, at the last minute, unable to attend tonight, but otherwise we are in full complement. The Board of Commissioners conducted an executive session following the workshop meeting held on May 6, 2019 to discuss one matter of litigation and one personnel matter. I would like to, at this point, make a comment, and that is today the Township lost one of our most prestigious residents, David Montgomery of Winmore. David's been a role model to many of us as a friend and as a civic leader, and he's taught us how to live and how to be a person of great integrity, and he's made the Phillies and Philadelphia and Springfield a much better place, and he's made the world a better place, and we will miss him. Moving along. The Board of Commissioners will be conducting two public hearings this evening. The first is to receive public comment on past performance of Verizon and future cable TV needs of the community as it relates to ongoing negotiations with Verizon to renew their cable TV franchise agreement. The second public hearing pertains to an amendment to the subdivision and land development ordinance related to the posting of financial security for public improvements within a development and posting a financial guarantee for public improvements that are to be dedicated to the Township. So we'll come back to those two. Any questions or comments on those matters should be held until the hearings. Otherwise, the Board is now open to comments or questions from the public. The Board draws particular attention to those items listed on the agenda this evening. Please be advised that once the committee reports begin, the Board can no longer accept questions from the floor. At the conclusion of the committee reports, public comments will once again be accepted. However, official action on those issues listed on the agenda will have already taken place. Therefore, if you wish to comment on an agenda item, now would be the appropriate time. Do we have any public comment? Sure.
I have a question about the water. Would that be now or later?
Yeah, you can do that now. But you need to state your name and address.
Sure. Hi. Happy Wednesday.
Hi.
I'm Jessica Williamson from 502 Orland Mill Road. And I think I'm not the only person in the neighborhood who's noticing a crazy increase in the aqua bills and then subsequently the sewer bill as well. So I wouldn't bring this up with all of you except that I know that I'm not the only one. So after this change out of the meter, my bill doubled, and I called them and they said it was an error. They double read. They read my meter and someone else's and attributed it to me. Same thing happened the second month, and they said no error. So I asked them to come out and check it, and they did, and they still said no error. So I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do next, and I feel like it's kind of a racket, and I was wondering if we have like a collective voice. Me, myself, I don't really get it.
We don't typically, but we do hear. We had somebody come on Monday who had the same problem, except hers went up 15 times. So,
Oh, wow.
and they came out and said, "Oh, there's nothing wrong. You're really living alone and using 30,000 gallons."
Yeah.
The Bucks County side of it, their rates did go up, and the Bucks County usage is based on your aqua usage. So that isn't exactly their fault. They're going to, but it means you're going to get nailed twice
Right.
on that. And Commissioner Graham arranged for a Bucks County person to come out and talk to people, so that will be coming up. But that doesn't help the aqua thing. Where did we leave it on the?
What it is that there was an issue, not with the aqua side, but more so with the Bucks County billing. And because of the difference in billings from one month to another, some people did mention that they had an issue with aqua, but most of the residents that contacted me stated that they had an issue with Bucks County. So I have reached out to Bucks County. As a matter of fact, today, someone from the office contacted me, and it's just a matter of setting a date. I told the residents that I would send out an e-blast. I will post it on my social media page, and I also will put it on, I think it's next door, Quill Lane, I think it is, or whatever that social media is.
Yeah.
But before you leave this evening, if you leave me your email address, I will make sure to include you in that discussion. Because I agree with you.
Appreciate it.
A collective voice is stronger than just individual voices.
Yeah, this issue is not Bucks County. This is definitely an aqua issue, and I've talked to a lot of people, and so I know I'm not the only one, but I'd appreciate hearing from both of them and having some help in talking to both of them.
We can talk.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
And nice job with the Carson Valley kids.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we can, on the aqua side, the township can help, because there are, as you know, there are others, and they can help maybe get Representative McCarter looking at. Aqua's a little easier in that they're regulated in the PUC. It's a weird thing. I've never heard of this before. Normally what happens is, that means you have a leak, and they come and they listen or do a pressure test or whatever they do, and they say you have a leak. But these people keep coming, and we're hearing the same thing. And they came out, they came out right to you. Yeah, they come out, and then they say no, and you're not using more. You would know if you're using more.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived here a really long time, my entire life, and my water bill went from like $40 a month to $200 a month.
Yeah. So keep your bills, but.
I'm not taking 4 times.
Right. So should she contact you, Don? Or are we keeping?
We'll reach out and find out whatever we do, and then we'll get the word out on the street by an e-blast or something.
Okay. So what they'll do is they'll try and figure out the right path to challenge this, then they'll send out an e-blast to the township.
Thank you so much.
So,
Appreciate it.
yes.
Quickly, I have a meter in the background, actually. I'm not here for anything to do with that, but read your meter. Read your meter every week and note your own meter reading. You keep track of your own meter for sure. There's laws on, twain don't twist. What's that say?
That's a good idea.
That's real, and your meter has a visual readout locally in your house, so keep track of your own meter for sure.
Okay, just if the TV didn't get it. His suggestion is if you're having problems like this, go take regular meter readings of your own, not just once a month. You'll get a sense as to whether it's a steady thing or whether, whatever, you'll get some evidence there. Do we have any other public comment at this point? At this point, let me just sort of set the background for what we're about to see. We have a matter that's appearing in front of the zoning board in a couple weeks, and that will be decided by the zoning board, but the commissioners have the ability to decide whether they want to oppose something or support something or otherwise intervene at the zoning board. We don't typically do that, but we sometimes do that. So we've asked the developer to represent the plan to us. We got it presented to us a while ago, and we were the ones who told them to go to zoning, and at that point we were favorably inclined. But there were questions from the board about changes that were made, and so we said, well, rather than just guess, we'd ask them to come back and just explain what's changed since we last saw it. So we have Brad McCleary, who's are you the architect? Is that your?
No, I'm the business development.
The business development guy from MEH Investments to make a presentation on this, which is a 100-unit age-restricted multifamily apartment complex at 380 Hawes Lane, Erdenheim. The site of we already have a development that was planned to go in there, which was 107-unit Traditions of Springfield. So that's kind of the background, and the floor is yours, Brad.
This is on the Township website.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having us tonight.
Brandon, no, he's not on.
Now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Appreciate you having us out tonight. As Jeff mentioned, we were here about a year ago to walk you through the plan that we put together that we felt was a better use than what had previously been approved on this site. So we're here tonight. I'm going to walk you through just confirming again what the site is. A lot of people get confused thinking that it's actually Harston Hall. It's not. It's the property in between Harston Hall and Erdenheim Elementary. So you can see it on the screen. To remind you, this was the approved plan that already went through zoning for 107 units of assisted living, 4-story building, roughly 27,000 square feet per floor, 4 stories, and got a zoning variance for 100 parking spots. So we found out this property was going to be in play. We thought we would have a little bit of a different spin on what the township has a need for that we could try and fill, focusing on baby boomers, people like my parents who have lived in this township their whole lives, who can't really take care of a 2,500 or 3,000 square foot home and want to stay in the township but don't have anywhere to go for single-story living and without maintenance to their property. Currently, Penn's Woods is really the only option, which is also down toward the bottom of Hawes Lane near Bethlehem Pike. But all of those units, or almost all of them, I think there's 65 units or so, and almost all of them are multi-floor, no elevator access, all stairs. So what we're proposing is single-floor living. We took the plan and tried to stay as close to the existing approved assisted living plan as possible. We think this is a benefit. There's no impact to the schools because there will be no children in this development. It's the least impactful with traffic. If there's extra parking, we're happy to try and let the elementary school use it as overflow parking. We know it's a challenge when the elementary school has events. We don't know if there will be extra parking, but if there is, we're happy to share it with the elementary school. Obvious tax benefits to the township, and then we're a small company. We just want to make sure everyone knows we would plan to hire an operator and a management company to run this project once it's complete. This is the plan up on the screen of what you saw just about a year ago. This was originally done just by our engineer pretty quickly, dropping in roughly the same size building that was shown on the approved plan. We kept the existing driveway at Wedgwood. So this is what we walked you through roughly a year ago, okay? What I want you to see is this was the version number 2 that was done over the summer. This building size jumped from about 27,000 square feet of floor to almost 33,000 square feet of floor. Okay, this was done once our architect got a chance to start diving in a little bit, develop a unit matrix of what the 100 units we're proposing might end up looking like. 40 one-bedrooms, 62 bedrooms, changing it around to try and find a mix that would work the best. That plan also kept the road at Wedgwood, but once we started deep dive a little bit more into the site itself, did a survey, what we found was it probably made more sense to move that driveway from Wedgwood up toward Green Hill. So you can see it's in the upper left corner of the plan now. So the driveway comes in here now. The building went from what you originally saw, about 27,700 square feet of floor. This one's showing it as 29,700. So it's an increase of about 2,000 square feet. But the unit count did not change. That was not done to increase the size to be able to squeeze more units in. It was really just done by the architect as he was playing with it. We moved the entrance from the rear of the building toward the front quarter to accommodate the new driveway. And then as you can see, the retention basin down at the bottom of the property became a little bit bigger. This is what it looks like dropped into a Google Earth overlay. So you can see areas where we were trying to keep as much tree cover as possible up here in this front corner. And the perimeter, even though it's dark up there, there's still this full tree line surrounding the property. So to help it sort of explain the changes, just so you can see, it's still 4 stories, it's still 100 units. The original plan you saw had 176 parking spaces. We reduced it by a count of 9 in an effort to reduce some of the impervious. So since last meeting, we've executed a full site survey on the property. We had the architect, like I said, do a detailed schematic building plan. We've had preliminary site engineering done to assess grading, stormwater, earthwork, access to the property, and we had the engineer as well do a detailed zoning and Saldo code review. So what you see on the plan now actually has a lot of the buffer setbacks that would meet code requirements. Specifically, you asked to hear about the changes to the project. Like I mentioned, the entrance was moved from Wedgewood to Green Hill. The old entrance on that plan was at the lowest possible point on the property. As we all know, stormwater is a huge concern, so we wanted to move that driveway to open up the lowest lying area to make sure it has as much room as possible for that retention basin. Okay, so that was one point. The Green Hill alignment is a much shorter run that helped us reduce impervious, which we're always trying to do. The Green Hill Drive entrance is further away from Ernheim Elementary. We don't know specifically if that helps, hurts. There will be a full traffic study done throughout the land development process, and we would take the lead of what that traffic study came back to say. We're open to moving it back if it makes sense, or if we're told that that's where it needs to be. It also allows for the building front entrance, like I mentioned, to be on the front of the property, which architecturally, aesthetically, will help the view from the street, so you're not seeing essentially the back of a building, which is all just sort of one run of windows. The existing front building that's currently on the property, we removed that. One, it helps reduce impervious. The grading analysis, we were going to plan to use that building as sort of like a clubhouse, just an area that wouldn't regularly be used, but if you wanted to host maybe a holiday dinner or a party for something, you could use that building if you're a resident there. It made it a little complicated to get ADA access based on the grading from the building to that building. It's not impossible, it could be worked out. So we're open to keeping that building. We had a second meeting with all the neighbors of this property last night at Flowertown Country Club, walked them through the plan, walked them through the changes, and we made it very clear, if we find out through the process that the township and the neighbors unanimously want to keep that building, we're open to keeping it on the plan. We'll do whatever we can to make it work. It doesn't affect the project itself one way or the other. This is not a fully amenitized property. These people live in Springfield. They've lived here for a long time. They go to Flowertown Country Club. They use the golf course. They do their shopping at Acme or at Giant. So they don't need 100 things on the property because they're active. This isn't for, 90-year-olds. This is 55, 65, 70-year-old active adults like my parents who still have kids and grandkids in the township. They want to go to games at Fell. They want to go to games at Al. They want to go to the elementary school and watch concerts and see Festival of the Arts and things like that. So one other thing with that building is it does obviously improve sight lines turning onto Hawes, regardless of where that driveway falls, either at Wedgewood or Green Hill. Removing that building helps to be able to look up the hill, turning onto Hawes if it's down at Wedgewood, or helps look down the hill toward the elementary school if that building's gone. But again, the traffic study will also bear that out a little bit more in detail, okay? Like we mentioned, they expanded the main building footprint. The biggest change was it went from a 70-foot wide building to an 80-foot wide building. That's basically industry standard now to make sure that you can fit units in there that meet code and are actually livable units, that you're not squeezing them in. That's where the additional 2,000 square foot came from. Like I
And
mentioned,
what is the square footage now? Not the footprint, but the usable?
it's 29.7 times 4. It's on there. Give me a second.
Just under 120.
It's just about 120,000 square feet. Currently, that puts us at about 15% building coverage. Under code, you can have up to 20%, so we're still well underneath that limit. And obviously, I think that square footage will still change a couple of times. We're a little more comfortable having that additional square footage in there because we can always reduce it a little bit, but we don't want to ever have to circle back and say, oh, we had to add another 1,000 square feet and that changed impervious, and now we're up against an already approved variance if we're able to get it at zoning. And then last thing, the reduction of impervious coverage. The original plan you saw had 60%. We've reduced it down to 54, which still puts us over the 40 that's required, which is why we're going in for a variance. But like I mentioned, reducing some of the parking spots, eliminating that building. We're doing whatever we can to get that impervious as low as possible, okay? For anybody that wants to see them, these haven't changed. We mentioned to the group last night, we are not married to this concept. We think this will probably change as well. We're certainly open to feedback from the Planning Commission, the commissioners, and the neighbors. A lot of what we've heard is they want it to be as dark as possible, as much brick, darker colors, just so it can hide a little bit up there. It's going to be a big building. No one's under any, false assumptions that you're not going to be able to see this thing from the road. You're going to be. But everybody seems to like the design aesthetic so far. And again, just a couple renderings. These have not changed from what you saw. This shows a rear entrance. There will still be access there, but the main entrance will be on the front
other
of the
side,
building.
right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the front left corner up toward Green Hill. So that's everything. Do you guys have any specific questions on the plan that we can help answer for you? Or obviously, if the public has any questions on it.
Brad.
Yeah, Peter.
Excuse me, Brad. A couple questions. The zoning on the tract right now, as we speak, is still institutional,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't want the board to be under the misassumption that the zoning had changed the last time they had gone through the zoning hearing board and got the 107 approved assisted living units. The biggest problem, and the other point of clarification here, one of your other exceptions is that you're asking for an increase in the maximum impervious coverage, which would include the building and the parking lot, and you're going from 40% to 54%. So more than half of that property will be covered by your buildings or your parking lots or your dumpsters or wherever that's there, So that's a significant increase in my opinion. And I think I was able to go to your meeting last night. Thank you very much for having and inviting all the neighbors. It was a nice turnout. There were probably 30, 35 people there, including your parents, which I saw in the back, but who I've known for a long time, and you have known for a long time. The problem I have here is that this is going to be a massive building with 4 stories and the potential of being close to 50 feet tall, and with the necessity of removing at least half of the trees that are located on the site there, which have certainly could soften the look of the building. And the fact that in your new proposal, you're moving the building even closer to Haas Lane, and I think you're also talking about taking down the existing other ancillary buildings that are there at this point in time. But my big objection is the concept that you can fit this, or you want to classify this building within the institutional district, okay? And clearly our current zoning law in the township talks about institutional districts and the permitted uses in institutional districts as being hospitals, clinics, nursing and personal care homes, or assisted living residences and group homes. It doesn't talk about anything with regard to age-restricted apartments or anything here. And I think that if you then just look, and this is, I mean, realistically, this is an apartment building. This is going to be a large apartment building in that neighborhood. And if you just looked at what the township's apartment district code says, literally, just a quick calculation, number one, the tract has to be at least 10 acres. You're certainly way under that. And it can't cover the buildings can't cover any more than 20% of the area, and it's limited to 12 units per acre. So on your 5.5 acres or so, you're talking about maybe 50, 60 units on this tract. So what clever developers have done is they've taken the approvals for the institutional district, they kind of mixed them up, and with the multifamily, and said, well, I think I'm entitled to 100 units on this tract. And I personally just don't see it, and I really think that the majority of the people who were there last night were somewhat concerned about the building and the size of the building and the impact the building would have on their property values and sight lines and all kinds of stuff, you know. So this happens to be in my district, and I have been following this for many, many years and talking to you for many years about this. But I don't think it will be, as a 100-unit age-restricted building, I don't think it will really be that much of a benefit to the township or the neighbors. So for those reasons, I would strongly recommend that we send our solicitor to the zoning hearing board in opposition of these changes. So that's my feeling.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Brad, we can come back to that when we get to the zoning report. Any? Okay, well, thank you, Brad.
Thanks. Thanks, Brian.
Then I'm not cutting you off, Peter, it's just we're not there in the agenda yet.
Okay.
So now we move on to the committee reports, and we'll come back to this when we get to the zoning report. The first item on the agenda is the May bill listing. I move that the Board of Commissioners approve the April check reconciliation in the amount of $492,231.18 and the May bill listing in the amount of $597,379.66. That is my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. The next, that's actually completes my report. So at this point, we move on to the chairman of the Public Works and Facilities Committee. And Glenn, you don't actually have a report?
I do
But you
not.
have the zoning one?
I do.
So we'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Now, we'll move on to the chairman of the Community Development Committee, Commissioner Standish.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I just have one announcement tonight. This is concerning opioid awareness. On Wednesday, May 22nd at 7 p.m., Springfield Township will be hosting a town hall meeting and community discussion on the opioid epidemic in Springfield Township and Montgomery County. The organizers and panel members include County Commissioner Val Arcouche, MD, representatives from the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office, Chief Mike Pitko, School District Superintendent Nancy Hacker, District Justice Kate McGill, Commissioner Jonathan Cobb, and community members willing to share their experiences of how they have been impacted by opioid addiction. So that is my announcement.
Thank you. We move on to the chairman of the Cultural and Environmental Resources Committee, Commissioner Wilson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Recycling report tonight. Pleased to announce that during the month of April 2019, Springfield Township residents recycled 166.7 tons of material with a householder participation rate of 80%. The net cost for the month was $20,251.22. That concludes my report.
Thank you. We move on to the chairman of the Parks and Recreational Resources Committee, Commissioner Graham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two motions this evening, and I'll start with the first one concerning the Memorial Day events. I move that the Board of Commissioners grant permission to the Arthur V. Savage American Legion Post of Wynmoor to utilize Veterans Parks for a Community Day event following the annual Memorial Day Parade, and to serve beer at the park as part of the Community Day event. Permission is granted subject to the following. One, the American Legion Post secures a permit for the use of the park. Two, the American Legion Post hires a police detail to be at the park when the beer is being served. And three, the American Legion Post secures an insurance rider for the day's events, naming Springfield Township as an additional insured. That is my motion.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Just one comment. These are the same restrictions we put on it every year. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote.
And my second motion is for concerning the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. I move that the Board of Commissioners reappoint Chris Tomlinson to a new 3-year term of service as a member of the Springfield Township Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. The new 3-year term of service shall expire May the 12th of 2020. 22. That is my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote.
That concludes my report this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Graham. We move to the co-chairman of the Public Safety Committee, Commissioner Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two items this evening. First is parking prohibition on Halls Lane. I move that the Board of Commissioners amend the Springfield Township Code, Section 107-32, Schedule 9, parking prohibited, by prohibiting parking on both sides of Halls Lane, Orland, at its intersection with Springfield Way to a point 170 feet easterly thereof. That is my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
It's my job tonight.
That's right. You're doing great. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote.
Next item is in regards to a stop sign on St. Clair Road. I move that the Board of Commissioners amend the Springfield Township Code, Section 107-28, Schedule 5, by authorizing the installation of a stop sign on St. Clair Road, Orland, in the northbound direction at its intersection with Paper Mill Road. That is my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Glenn?
As reluctant as I am. Second.
Are there any questions or comments?
The only comment I have is if anyone knows where this stop sign is going, it's leaving a dead end. There's two houses on this section of St. Clair Road, and it backs up to the North Hills Country Club. So originally the thought was, why would we need a stop sign there? However, it was pointed out very well in Sergeant Gross's memo that if someone from out of town were to come into Orland and inadvertently turn right into St. Clair and hit the dead end and make a U-turn and come back out, there's nothing to tell them to stop there. So with that being said, a lot of words, but I am in favor of it. So.
Right, and the background on that and other ones is this is not creating a new duty to stop. A lot of dead ends don't have stop signs. You still have to stop or your failure to yield and you'll get hit. So this isn't putting a four-way stop somewhere. This is a place where you darn well better stop. It's a major road you're coming to.
Yes.
But it was felt that we can't put a stop sign in unless we authorize the stop sign. So this is not too significant, but it could save somebody's life. I guess that makes it
That's pretty significant in itself, yeah. We should just stop talking.
That's right. Let's strike that from the record. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote.
That concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Maxwell. And now, in the absence of Commissioner Cobb, I'm going to call on Commissioner Shum for the zoning report.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So the public hearing for the zoning hearing board will be on Monday, May 20th at 7 p.m. in this building. There is only one petition this month. It's for 380 Hawes LP, which again is associated with MEH Investments, the presentation that we saw earlier. They are requesting variances for the property at 380 and 402 Hawes Lane. The variances are from Section 114.8D1 to allow multiple dwelling use, Section 114.8D5.B to increase the maximum impervious coverage from 40% to 54%, from Section 114.134.A to decrease the required off-street parking from 200 spaces to 167 spaces. The property is located in the institutional district, which was previously granted relief to allow the construction of a 107-unit retirement home. If the above-noted relief is granted, the applicant is proposing to accumulate the lots into a single 4.7-acre tract and construct a 100-unit, age-restricted multiple dwelling. That's my report.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Shum. And Commissioner Wilson, you can make your motion at this point.
Okay, I would make a motion for the reasons I already expressed, with the biggest being that the applicant has failed to demonstrate that this use really falls within the permitted uses of an institutional district. Therefore, I would ask that the township send the solicitor to the zoning hearing board and represent our displeasure with the proposed changes outlined on the Glenn just reported.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, let's have some discussion. How do people feel about this?
Jeff, I'm sorry, can I comment, or do I have to wait for you to comment?
Actually, you're not really allowed to comment at this point.
That seems unfair that I couldn't respond then to that.
But we'll go ahead.
You have to
You need to use the mic,
either
though.
come to that
You go to the
microphone or
mic.
go to that one, please. Sorry, Ron.
That's okay. So while, Peter, I certainly understand your concerns, and I respect your opinion thoroughly. However, I think the characterization of us as developers specific to this project, when you mentioned we felt entitled to 100 units, is one, unfair. You make it sound as if we've approached this project on multiple sites, couldn't find it or get it done, so happened to find an institutional piece that we could pounce on to then use that zoning to our advantage. That's certainly not the case. This project that was previously approved set the standard in that zoning of institution on that specific property.
Yeah, but for an assisted living facility.
Correct.
You are not building an assisted living facility.
We're not,
You
but
are building basically an apartment house.
We don't have zoning in Springfield for age-restricted specific that a lot of other townships do. So it's a very gray area left to interpretation that you're saying it falls much closer to multifamily. I think some people would say it's actually very close to assisted living in the age that you're getting much closer to that. So I think it's unfair of you to make that determination.
Well, Brad, it's not me making the determination. I'm just reading what are the permitted uses in our zoning code under institutional district, and your facility, as outlined and described, as you described it, does not appear to conform.
It does not conform.
Right,
You're
and
right.
that's one of the reasons you're going before the zoning hearing board.
Correct.
One of the reasons.
As instructed by this board after giving you a plan, walking you through it, receiving fairly positive feedback, and trying to acquiesce to your wishes. So while you're asking to go in against opposition, I would say at the very least, I would appreciate this board, if you're not going to go in support, that you abstain from one way or the other going to that board and letting them make a decision on their own without feeling like it's being biased by this board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We didn't give them a chance before. Let me jump in here, first of all, with a little background and then with my opinion. We've been in part of this process all along, and it's a long-stated need that we don't have a place for people to age out of their homes here, and it's been a problem, which is partly why we encourage you to move forward with this. When it was ready to go, it came to us, and the way they wanted to move forward was with a zoning amendment. And that is sort of the easy way to do these things, which is if you've got typically it happens when a farm gets developed and, say they're entitled to 35 homes, well, they want more than that, and then we say no, and then they make agreements, well, we'll give you this open space, we'll give you that, and you reach a compromise of, in the past, it's been often more than that, although not in the most recent one. And then you have what's known as an overlay zoning district that's designed just for that one project, and it clogs up the zoning code. Cheltenham pulled that on actually a project very similar to this on a golf course, where they went and created something that allowed these 4-story apartment buildings. And guess what? When the Lloyd Estate, which is in Springfield and in Cheltenham, came along, it fit the Cheltenham piece. So what was zoned for 17 homes suddenly was zoned for 8 mid-rise 4-floor buildings. And the developer, this wasn't even the same developers, because the overlay was just sitting there and they happened to fit it. And it's been through a lot of litigation. Our side's being done with what's known as a by right. They didn't need any approval on our side. They just did what they were allowed to. We had to talk them down to that level. But the Cheltenham side's been through a lot of litigation, and the township has lost, I think, at every step of the way. So in my view, these overlays should really be avoided at all costs. So when they came here, I think I know I supported it, but I said I'd really like you to go to zoning. And the nice thing about zoning is not only does it not create this weird thing in the zoning code that might suck in another property, it also gives the neighbors a better chance to come and say, hey, you know, can you make sure the lights go out at 10 o'clock? Or can you move this sign from here to there? Or can you make a promise that you'll never have more than 2 buses on the property? And those things can be part of the zoning approval, and you're able to come up with something that's more tailored fit. Now, the zoning board may say no, too. That's what they're there for. And Pete's right that this is something that's zoned institutional, and apartments aren't things that we consider as generally as institutional. That's why it's going to zoning. It's a different use. So that's kind of the background, and as I think you understand, we don't make this decision. The zoning board makes its decision, but we have the ability to go in with our elbows out and say, hey, we don't like this. And we do, and that generally kills deals when we do that, and that's what Peter is proposing that we do, and that is perfectly appropriate. I don't agree in this case. We've got 9 nursing homes in the township already. Some of them don't pay any tax at all. Some of them flip back and forth, so we don't know which ones aren't going to pay tax. It depends who owns them. And this would be the 10th, the way it's been approved for 107 units. It was shopped around, the ownership changed, so we don't know whether it would have ended up being for-profit or not for-profit. I think they were for-profit ones. There's a risk there. I don't think there's a need for it. I do agree with Peter that this is going from 107 of that to 100 of this may be a little more intensive. It's bigger. It will have more traffic, but it won't have all the staff either. So it won't quite be, it's a little bit of apples to apples on the traffic because you don't have aides and cooks and whatnot coming in like you would at the assisted living place. But the key to me in looking at all this, sort of close the loop on that, I'm comforted on the fact that the property tax will be there. They will be paying their rate. The point in making age restricted attracted to us typically is it means that you're not going to have a whole bunch of school kids there. So you're not going to have the situation of we build a new elementary school and then you have 100 units and 200 kids that come in and suddenly the schools are full. That's the attractiveness of it. And as Peter has said, age restrictions are tricky because you have a narrower market. They kind of come and go out of favor. But that's why there's an attraction to us, because it's not going to just throw a real curveball to the school board. Obviously, in a nursing home wouldn't do that either. But in this case, it's going to be for profit, so we know we get the property tax. I've seen some people say on Facebook, oh, there'll be rental, they won't be property tax. Well, that's not the way it works. The property, they pay the property tax. You just pay it in your rent when you're renting. But it's, we don't say, oh, it's a rental unit. We don't charge property tax. It doesn't work that way. So the property tax would be there. That's not the be-all and end-all, but I like the stability of that. I think it helps all of us. But the most important thing to me here is I really think there's a need for it. And we've been hearing this for years, where people, as we hear about these other developments, we really need a place to age out here. And we hear stories of dozens of people who, we raised our family here and then we moved up to Whitpain or we moved up to there because there was no place here. I think it's filling a need, and my opinion would be to not send council and to let the zoning board do their job, let the neighbors come in. Maybe the neighbors come in and kill it. That's okay with me. Let the zoning board do their job. That's what they're there for. So I kind of agree with everything you say individually, Peter, but I don't agree with the conclusion. So I will not support the motion to send the solicitor. Does anybody else want to speak?
Well, I would just reinforce what Jeff just said. I'm not going to repeat it all, but as everybody knows, I'm the liaison to the Planning Commission, and one of the things that it's concerned me for a long time is just this idea that we have ordinances which over time become antiquated based on what the market is looking for. And we've seen, as an example, AAA housing not being built in this township ever since the inception of AAA or cluster housing, for the main reason that no housing developer really, finds that it's a marketable commodity. So there are other types of things that are viable and still work for us all, such as townhouses, that kind of thing. And so I think this is a similar kind of a thing. I think that our zoning ordinance for institutional use and all that should be perhaps revised, but it's not the kind of thing that we can spend all of our time doing. We spend a lot of our time in Planning Commission, looking at projects and trying to refine them under the guidance of the existing zoning ordinances. But, as a lot of people know, in the last couple of months, I tried to create a multifamily zoning, addendum or change to our, code, and it didn't really fly. And I think that's unfortunate because I think that there are some houses, old houses, nice old houses that are in danger of being torn down, and I think there's a need for, smaller units in nice buildings that cater to people 55 and over. My mother is an example of somebody who is going to be moving into a unit in our neighboring community, and there are not that many places in Springfield that she would, could look at. So there's an example. So I'm basically in favor of this. I think it's a good idea, and I don't think I think the alternative is that somebody can come along and build 107 units and go ahead and build a congregate care facility, and it's not going to cater to what I think is necessary for our seniors. And as Jeff said, we're not. I don't agree. I don't want to oppose it. We'll take it to zoning, and Brad, you can fight your fight there, and the neighbors don't like it, so be it. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
I have a comment. I don't know about the rest of the board, but I know that at age 55, I was still working, and I still had kids in the school district. They were in the high school at the age of 55. So I think that it's, I don't know, when people say 55 and above, they automatically think of seniors and grandparents. I disagree with that. 55, I was still working. I still had children in the high school. Also, I think what I'm hearing from what Commissioner Wilson was saying was that to just make sure that if we could just vote to have our solicitor attend the meeting to make sure that the permissive use that is within the zoning, within our zoning ordinances now, to make sure that the board is aware of the zoning. I think I'm on the line with that, but I don't think he's asking for anything that's unreasonable. He just wants to make sure that the developer is staying within the ordinances which are already in existence. So I would vote in favor of having the solicitors, not like we're downing the project. He's just making sure that our solicitor is making sure that the zoning board stays within the ordinance.
If the zoning board stays within the ordinance, then it doesn't go to zoning, though. I don't understand. Zoning
Well, I
is
think that's
free
why
exception.
Pete wants to make sure that, I mean, if I'm understanding your motion correctly, is to say that.
I know.
Well, my motion would be the solicitor going to oppose the plan, based on the current zoning district.
Okay. Any other comments on the left wing here?
No, just a quick one, Brad. From, what are we, like 16 months ago, we had the first meeting. I didn't attend last night's meeting, but both your meetings in general were positive. I think from the first meeting that you had with the residents, you took input and feedback and questions into the first design that you had. I don't think that you're trying to pull a fast one on anybody. I think that you're trying to fit a need in the community, and that was one of the things at your first meeting that you heard from the residents as in attendance was the need for somewhere for 55 and older. In that same conversation, there were concerns about the assisted living with the traffic and the commute and the workers. And that was, when everybody left that meeting, that was a gray area where you guys were decided because you were still in your exploratory phase of the project. I'm not going to support sending the solicitor to oppose it. I would like to have the zoning board hear you argue your case and make their ruling based on that, because I believe you are doing the right thing. There's nothing you're trying to get. As far as a variance that's unrealistic, and like I said before, you are fitting a need in this community. So for right now, I'm not going to support the motion to oppose it.
Thank you.
Well, let me just clarify. I am not indicating, as Mr. McCleary says, the language. We're not trying to find out if they're pulling a fast one. I think we need to kind of take that off of their table. We're not saying that he's trying to pull a fast one. We're just saying that I see what Peter's saying, is that we just should have the solicitor there to voice an objection based on the zoning. If they vote, the board votes to come back and have this come before us, fine. Then we'll discuss it again. But my dissension in this is not to say that you're trying to pull a fast one. So I don't want that to be placed on record. I just think that we should have our legal representation through our solicitor's office just to be present to say, hey, under the present day permissive use, this is what's under the law now, under the ordinances now. And so we just want to have that on record. So it's not to be opposing your project, it's just to stress the present day ordinance. So it's not trying to pull a fast one.
Okay.
Or you're not trying to pull a fast one.
Are we ready to vote? Do we have?
Yeah, I'm not going to make a comment.
So we have a motion on the floor to send the solicitor in opposition of the project. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And all opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Please report a 2-4 vote. The motion does not pass. That hearing will be on May 20th. I know he said it, but it was a while ago. In this room, is that 7 or 7:30? What's the?
It's at 7 p.m.
7 o'clock in this room. We're in the Township building for those of you on TV.
Would you like me to read the requested variances again, sir?
No.
Thank you.
You liked your moment in the sand as an acting chair of the zoning committee.
Well, I haven't had a report for a couple months, so.
And may I point out, you already finished your report. We did this after you finished your report. So.
Duly noted.
So you don't have the floor right now. So now what we're going to do is we have these 2 public hearings, which will be very quick, I suspect. But we have to do them. There's a little bit of a kabuki theater we have to go through to make them separate hearings. But this probably won't take far less than 10 minutes. The first one has to do with the Verizon agreement is getting renewed. We went through this with Xfinity last year, and we have to take public comment on that. And so I have stuff I need to read. Oh, first I need to, we have to get into the, let me get to my, I'll mess it up if I don't. It is here. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to recess the business meeting and convene 2 public hearings. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. So now we're in the 2 hearings. The first one is the Verizon cable franchise renewal. The purpose of this hearing is being held in compliance with Section 626 of the Federal Cable Act, which sets forth the process for cable franchise renewals. The current Springfield Township franchise agreement with Verizon expired September 2018, and the Township is in the process of considering the terms of a renewal. As part of the preliminary portion of a franchise renewal, the Township, 1, reviews the cable operator's past performance, and 2, identifies future cable-related community needs. The legal requirements associated with the public hearing have been met by publishing a notice of public hearing in the April 21 and 28, 2019 issues of the Ambler Gazette. In addition, public hearing notices were posted in the Springfield Township building and in the Free Library of Springfield Township. Summary. Franchise renewal is the best opportunity for municipalities to assert their rights with respect to their cable operators and to obtain important benefits in return for granting the cable operators the right to use their public rights of way. These benefits include 1, a state-of-the-art cable system now and in the future, 2, strong customer service standards, 3, free services to the community facilities, 4, better reporting requirements from the cable operator, 5, maximized franchise fees, 6, an educational and governmental channel, 7, capital support for active EG channels, 8, legal protections of the rights of way, and 9, better mechanisms to enforce the franchise agreement. So at this point, we now ask if there are any comments from the board. There being none, we ask, are there any from the audience? All of your comments will be considered as part of the formation, and probably not at great length, of a cable TV franchise agreement with Verizon. Once a franchise agreement is in its final draft form, the agreement will be made available for public review prior to approval by the board. And just one side note, the way we do these agreements is we work together with other townships. We're able to therefore make the legal fees less and able to get more expertise and get a better deal. That process is ongoing. So at that point, now do I need to close the meeting, or or can I move on to the next one and then have the votes at the end? Okay. Okay, we have I'd like to receive a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, that's a unanimous vote. Now do I just go in the other one and I can make my motion at the end? But that one doesn't have a motion, does it? Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, I can explain it if you want.
Yeah, why don't we start off, before I read all this stuff, why don't you tell us what this is about?
This is an amendment, ladies and gentlemen, to modify and amend the Township Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance, which we sometimes call the SALDO, Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance, because there is a discrepancy between our ordinance and a law in Pennsylvania called the Municipalities Planning Code. It has caused a number of arguments between the township and the developer, and the result is that this amendment makes the township ordinance absolutely identical to the MPC, the Municipalities Planning Code, so there doesn't need to be further arguments on that subject. And it relates the obligation to provide 15% security for those improvements which are to be dedicated to the township, where the township has indicated we will take an improvement like a road, a sidewalk, a curb, storm sewer, or something like that. Most of the time we take those improvements, but they become ours. They become township assets, and what the law permits us to do is to say, for those improvements, we want you to put up 15% of the cost of those improvements for 18 more months to make sure they work. And if they work, then fine, then the dedication is finalized and we become the owner of those improvements. But that was not required, said in the township ordinance on the same subject, with the result that all improvements were being required for this 18 months, and there were some fights and arguments about that. So now it's clarified that it is only dedicated, or improvements proposed to be dedicated and accepted by the township.
Thank you. So the too long didn't read version of that is that this is basically housekeeping items, making the laws fixed. Now I'm going to read the statement. The public hearing is being held in compliance with Section 505 of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code to consider amendments to the Springfield Township Code, Chapter 95, Subdivision of Land, as it relates to the posting of financial security for public improvements as part of the subdivision or land development. The legal requirements associated with the public hearing have been met by publishing a notice of public hearing in the April 21 and 28, 2019 issues of the Ambler Gazette. In addition, public hearing notices were posted in the Township Building and Library. Copies of the full text of the ordinance were available in the Township Building, Springfield Library, offices of Montgomery Publishing, and the Montgomery County Law Library. Summary. In summary, the ordinance entitled Modification of Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance Financial Security Provisions amends the Code of the Township of Springfield, Chapter 95, Subdivision of Land, Article 3, Standards, Improvements, Guarantee, to repeal Section 95-12, Guarantee for Construction of Improvements, and replace with a new Section 95-12, Guarantee for Construction of Improvements, in order to update the financial security provisions consistent with the municipality's planning code, and further amends Article 4, Approval of Plans, to repeal Section 95-16, Owner of Guarantee Material and Work, and replace it with new Section 95-16, Owner to Guarantee Material and Work Proposed for Dedication, reestablishing the financial security requirements for dedicated improvements consistent with the municipality's planning code. Planning Commission review. The Springfield Township Planning Commission wrote a letter dated May 1, 2019, noted that the Township Planning Commission discussed the proposed ordinance at the meeting of April 16, 2019, and voted to recommend that the Board of Commissioners enact the ordinance. The Montgomery County Planning Commission provided a letter of recommendation dated April 5, 2019. The County Planning Commission recommends enactment of the subject ordinance. The Board of Commissioners is holding the public hearing on the amendments to the subdivision land ordinance and may call for a vote. But at this point, are there any comments or questions from the board? And are there any from the audience? At that point, I would now accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. I will now accept a motion to reconvene. We're almost there. Reconvene the public meeting. Do we have?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Please record a unanimous vote. Now, down to our last thing, actually our second to last thing, because we have public comment again.
Can vote on that ordinance.
That's what I'm going to do.
Oh.
So now I'm going to make a motion for that last, that we didn't have to do anything on Verizon, but for the saldo changes. I move that the Board of Commissioners enact ordinance number 960, an ordinance amending the Springfield Township Code, Chapter 95, Subdivision of Land, to repeal and replace Section 95-12, Guarantee for Construction of Improvements, and to repeal and replace Section 95-16, Owner to Guarantee Material and Work Proposed for Dedication. That is my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Please report a unanimous vote. Now, at this point, we are open to any more public comment. Do we have any? There being none, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Being very